Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Wow, come on, guys. Let's wake up before we do a lecture. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning.
Perfect. Good morning for those watching us online. Thank you for being here on this long weekend. Beautiful day outside. But today we're gonna nourish our soul, and we're gonna talk about "Blessed are the meek and the peace-loving" by our friend Patrick. But before we do that, we are gonna have our initial reading and prayer done by our friend Tiago.
Morning. So the reading today comes from the book Happy Life by the spirit of Joana de Angelis and psychography of Divaldo Pereira. You can do more for humanity if you choose to. Extend your hand to one who has fallen. Say a kind word to someone else. Smile at the lonely person, offering him brotherhood. Give a friend a flower. Make someone sad smile. Surround an unfortunate with tenderness. There are coins of love that are worth more than treasures in the bank when used at the right moment and with kindness. No one dismisses a friend or disdains a helpful gesture. Compete for the honor of building a better world and a happier society. And with this, let us close our eyes and elevate our thoughts to our Master Jesus, to the spiritual friends together here with us today. And let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this opportunity of being here together with the purpose of learning and reflect a little bit more on the words and teachings that you left us. May you guide and illumine our brother Patrick, who is going to deliver the lecture today. And may you guide us through this task that we're about to perform. Thank you so much. Be with us today and always, and so be it.
So good morning.
Good morning.
So today we will talk a little bit about blessed are the meek and the peace loving. And I think before we start,
Did you turn it on?
yes, thank you. I will give an introduction a little bit what is meekness and what is peace loving. So being meek does not mean that we are passive or apathic. It means that we should reject any kind of violence. The meek are normally very silent, but we are very powerful, while the others are noisy and weak. Peace loving means more than restoring peace with others. It means that we need to restore peace with ourselves. It means that we are following Jesus' teachings. Now, so before entering the chapter 9 that talks a little bit about the meek and the peace loving, I brought a little bit of the introduction of chapter 6 that talks about the consolating Christ. And here, Kardec brings to us that all kinds of suffer, misery, disappointments, physical pain, and loss of a family member, will find their consolation in the faith that we have in the future and in the trust of God's justice. It is very hard for us here incarnated to get rid of the pain. And we can see that with people that don't believe in the afterlife. So we have an example of people that commit suicide. Usually people that commit suicide, they think that they will end suffering when they end their existence here on earth. But then when they go to the other side, so they go to the spiritual side, they suffer much more. And then Jesus invites us to be humble and to ask for his help when we are at this point, so when we are suffering. Usually, And then there is just one condition for him to give us his assistance. And the condition is to be loving and to do the charity. Thank you. So Jesus knew when he was, thank you. Jesus knew when he was here 2024 years ago, and when he brought the teachings that we as humans, that we wouldn't understand all of it. Okay, thank you. That we wouldn't understand all of it. And more than that, that we would misinterpret his teachings. And then he promised to bring us another counselor. And this counselor would be the Spirit of Truth. And then comes Spiritism, preside over the established by the Spirit of Truth. And Spiritism invites us humans to observe the law and the teachings that Jesus brought to us. And Jesus stated, "Let those who had ears to hear." And then came Spiritism to explain a little bit more of what Jesus was trying to explain. So if we get the gospel, we have a lot of explanations of Jesus passages, and all much more explained. I know that I can talk by me, that sometimes we read it and we don't get anything, but they're much more easier for us nowadays. And Jesus stated as well, "Blessed are the afflicted, for they shall be conformed." But how can we bless suffering if we do not know why we suffer? So basically, we are expiating our past. And the purpose of the suffering is to lead to our own healing, which is the purification of our spirit that will ensure our happiness. And we need to understand that the suffering aids our own progress, and that we should accept it without complaining. It is important. It teaches us that the material things loses the importance and gives us the strength to follow the pathway to the end. That gives us an unshakable faith in the future, knowing that we are here on earth, incarnated, to evolve, and that one day we will be with the good spirits. So basically a summary into here that Kardec brought to us a little bit about our behaviors, and that we will not be meek by being irritated, aggressive, selfish, etc. And that we, as spirits, are always in progress. And that we will be meek because we want to be meek, because we will find our happiness there, and not because we will be forced to do it. And when I was studying and preparing the lecture, I can't remember where I found this, but there's a phrase that we just get wrong when we are trying to do it right. So once we start to getting that we are doing things wrong, we're starting to progress. We are knowing us better, and so we can start to notice and to make some changes. And it is important to be conscious on what we say and what we do. Again, because if we are doing that, we can change and we can progress. So now talking a little bit more about chapter 9, where we have the blessed are the meek and the peace-loving. We have 3 passages that Jesus brought to us, and all of them are in Matthew chapter 5, that I want to read to you. So the first one, blessed are the meek, for they shall possess the earth. Blessed are the peace-loving, for they shall be called children of God. And third, you have learned what was said to the ancients: you shall not kill, and whoever kills shall deserve being condemned to judgment. But I say to you that whoever shows anger against his brother shall deserve being condemned to judgment. However, whoever says to his brother, Haka, shall deserve to be condemned by council. And whoever says to him, you fool, shall deserve being condemned to the fire of hell. So here on the first passage, Jesus brought to us that we should give more awareness and more importance to the things from heaven and not to the material things. And of course, we are here incarnated. We need to live our lives. So we need the material things. We need to have food, we need to have a house, and that's not what he meant. We can have all of that. We need just to give the right awareness and knowledge for the things from heaven. And as we know, the earth evolves like we human evolve. God's justice happens on earth and here and in heaven. And with this first passage, Jesus is teaching us that the meek will stay on earth and in heaven once it evolves. And by that, the ones that have not evolved will be sent to other planets to continue their evolution. And here, it's not a punishment. It's just that they don't have more the conditions, or they will not have more the conditions to be here incarnated with the spirits that will be here. They will be sent to a planet where they will continue their evolution until they can or come back or go to another planet that is evolved like the Earth will be someday. Once love and charity were established and through the planet, there will be not more selfishness. The meek and the peace-loving will no longer will be no longer explored by the violent. And that does not mean that we will have here just perfect spirits or evolved spirits. It will just be part of the evolution of the earth. So with these three passages, Jesus makes meekness, moderation, docility, affability, and patience a law. And he also condemned violence and discourteous expressions regarding other people. And if we get Jesus' history when he was incarnated here on earth, he never tried to take power using violence, using force, right? He didn't try to help the Greek people to get free of the Romans. On the contrary, he was meek and he was peace-loving. And there's also a famous phrase of Humberto de Campos, and he was a Brazilian journalist, politician, and writer. And he says, God uses time, not violence. So by that, we can see that God has no rush. We will have our time, we will have our path, and He will accept us whenever we are ready to evolve. Now talking a little bit about the words and the speech. If we go back to the third passage, we can see that that there was a word used in Jesus' time. It was haka. And haka means worthless person. But why does a simple word have enough gravity to deserve such severe reproach? No more. Thank you. So, sorry. So every offense word expresses a sentiment, contrary with the law of love and charity, which should regulate human relations and maintain harmony and unite us. Every word that we say will come with the energy that we are adding to it. And we as a society, we got used to use swear words, and we always say, "Hey, that's just a word. So what's the problem by me saying that?" But as we can see here in this passage that Jesus brought to us, that's not the case. We need to pay attention to do not have the smile in our face and the venom in our lips. By saying that, he's meaning like doing gossip, bad mouthing, or swearing. Another important thing from this passage is that we need to pay attention to do not be domestic tyrants and make our families and subordinates suffer. So by that, I think we all here have like an example in our head, and that was the best example I could give. But the idea here is for us to, it's very easy for us to be nice with people that are outside of our home. So we come to a spirit center, we look nice, we say nice words, we are kind, but we don't do the same thing at home with our loved ones. And we need to try to do that at home, because if we are doing that at home, the probability that we are doing it outside with people that we don't know would be much more. And another thing is that our lips will always put out what we have in our hearts. So if we pay attention on what we have in our hearts, we will just put out exactly what we have in there. So we need to pay attention on what we are saying, thinking, and doing. We will attract the spirits on the same vibration of our words, thoughts, and actions. And then I brought here some questions from the Spirits book. Thank you. From the Spirits book that talks a little bit about that. And for the answers, I make like a resume explaining a little bit of what was the answer. So question 466. Why does God permit spirits to incite us to evil? Basically, he's testing our faith and the consistency in the practice of the good. Second, we call the evil influence. We connect to them through our words, thoughts, and actions. And here, there's an example that we always use here, and in many lectures, if you remember, we are driving, and then someone just crossed in our front, and then we are mad. And then we start to say bad words, to think bad things, and perhaps to do something wrong as well. And we need to try to be calm and to be patient. Another example is when we gossip about other people's lives. And the third thing that we have here as an answer is that the good spirits will always help us to be connected to them, but we need to ask and we need to want it. They will respect our free will, and we need to do our part. And then we have question 467. Can people avoid the influence of spirits who incite them to evil? Yes, they will just have access to us if we connect with them. And how do we do that? By paying attention to our thoughts, to our words, and to our actions. And then we have question 468 that asks, do spirits whose influence is repelled by an individual's will finally give up after their attempt? Yes. And here, I think we can get an example from us. If we are trying to do something, or let's say you go to a coffee shop and you're there for 5, 10 minutes and nobody is helping you, you will leave. The same thing is with the spirits. Once we are not giving the attention to them, they will leave. And that's for the good spirits and for the bad ones. So we need to connect with the right spirits that we want to be connected. And then we have question 469. But what means can we neutralize the influence of the spirits? So the first thing is doing good and placing all our trust in God. The second is guard to not listen to the evil spirits. And here again is the connection. If we are thinking good, saying good, and practicing good, we are connected to the good spirits. We need to pay attention to our pride. And again, we need to pay attention to our words, thoughts, and our behavior. And one thing that we always discuss here on Wednesday when we have our study is about the intention. So our intention will aggravate or mitigate our fault. So if I did something, but my intention was good, and I did a bad thing for someone, of course I will be responsible for the bad thing that I did. But given my intention, the fault, our fault would be mitigated. And the opposite is the truth. So if I did a bad thing and I wanted to do that, my fault will be aggravated. Thank you. Sorry. And then I brought a chapter that's from the Living Spirit, written by Chico and brought for the Espírito Humano. And I want to read it for you. So speech. And soundness of speech that cannot be condemned, so that those who oppose you may be ashamed, because they have nothing bad to say about us. Through speech, a man helps or causes hardship to himself. Even if our intimacy remains clouded with problems, our words should not become turbid or unbalanced to others. Each one has his enigma, his need and pain, and it is not fair to increase the afflictions of the neighbors with the burden of our restlessness. The expression of the complaint discourages, the rough verb wipes, the slanderous remark confuses. By our conduct manifestation regarding the mistake of others, we keep the truth away from us. By our less and noble verbal expression, we thrust away the blessing of love that would fill us with the satisfaction of living. Let us have the necessary courage to eliminate, by ourselves, the rate of our uncontrolled feeling and desires. The word, the word is a challenge of the self. By the valve of the tongue, our passions explode and our virtues expand. Each time we manifest the vocabulary that is peculiar to us, we spread forces that destroy our build, undetermine, or restore hurt or soothe. Language, is our view, consists of three essential elements: expression, manner, and voice. If we do not clarify the sentence, if we do not perfect the manner, and do not educate the voice according to the situations, we are likely to lose our best opportunities for amelioration, understanding, and elevation. Paul of Tarsus provides the appropriate recipe for the appearances of the gospel: neither too sweet nor too bitter, neither too soft, chasing away confidence, nor harsh or blunt, breaking sympathy, but sound and irreproachable language for the opponent to be ashamed of, having no harm to say about us. And here we are responsible, we can see that we are responsible for everything that we say, and it can help us, or it can, depending on what we are saying, on what we are connecting. We need to pay attention to the words that we say, and by that, the spirits that we are connecting. So now shifting a little bit to patience. Patience is a form of charity, and we need to practice it. Uh, we need to practice charity like Jesus taught us to. The charity of giving to the poor is the easiest one of all charities. But there is no better way to do charity than forgiving whom has placed out on our path to be instrument of our suffering and to put our patience to the test. By doing that, we will have much more merits in God's eyes. All of us here that we are incarnated, we have a lot of challenges. And sometimes we think that life is hard. And it is. But we are here to learn. And we need to remember to thank God for the opportunities and that the consolations that we receive are much more numerous than the sorrows. And when I read that, and when I was studying the chapter and preparing the lecture, I was thinking about myself, right? And how many good things happens during our days and that we are not thankful. Because usually we complain about everything that went wrong or that it didn't happen, it should happen, but we don't get the attention that we go and come from our homes safely every day, that we are healthy, that we have jobs, that we have houses, that we have food. So we need to pay attention on that and be thankful for that as well. And that will help us to be more patient with the things that do not happen. And perhaps if that doesn't happen, it wasn't to be. We need to have the courage to follow in Jesus' teachings. Jesus, that was our model, suffered much more than us, just to bring us the teachings that now we are trying to understand and to practice. So we need to be patient and follow Jesus' teachings. And then there is a phrase that Chico said sometimes, and I did a translation, so I think it's 99% accurate. Patience is a medicine that we need to take every day in the morning before having our breakfast, even if we do not need it at the moment. So after I read that, I was like, okay, I think now every morning I'm trying to get 2 or 3 minutes and just ask for patience during my day. Perhaps I can do it a little bit better than I did yesterday. Sorry. And then we have obedience and resignation. So obedience is the constant of the reason, and resignation is the constant of the heart. Basically, every generation is marked with the stamp of virtues and vices. And our generation is marked with the intellectual activity, and our vice is our moral indifference. And I think here we can see that, right? If we want, we can turn our house lights on and off from here. We can do the air conditioning on and off. We can go to the space. But we think twice by helping someone that's in necessity just across the street. So we need just to follow Jesus' teachings and try to do a little bit more of charity and help people and be patient. Now, anger. So talking a little bit about anger, it's because of our pride and because we think we are better than we really are. And usually we do not accept any comparison that might demote us in many areas of our lives, spiritual, moral, social, etc. And this do not exclude the good things that we have in our hearts, but it keep us to do all the good things that we could do, and more than that, that could lead us to the practice of evil. So it is our responsibility to motivate ourselves to evolve, and just a reminder that was there in the chapter that anger is contrary to charity. So once we are anger, we have anger, we are not practicing charity. And then Jesus brings us to us on chapter 12 of the Gospel. He stated, if someone wants to force you to do 1,000 steps with him, go 2,000. that can remind us a little bit to our patience, to our resilience. And Jesus did not interdict self-defense, but condemned vengeance. In resume, we should not repay evil with evil. We need to forgive and to pray for those who did evil to us. So a little bit of a summary, because after saying all of that, when I was studying, I was like, okay, perhaps now I need a summary, so I will take the summary with me. So the first thing that caught my attention was we need to pay attention to our words because they are very powerful. We need to be patient. We need to try to be more patient than we are. And I think everyone is getting there. We need just to try to be a little bit more. And if we can be a little bit more tomorrow, we can be a little bit more the day after, and then we are evolving. We need to do charity, and patience is one of the ways to do charity. We need to learn how to forgive, but the real forgiveness, not just say, hey, I forgive, but forgive from our heart. And we need to get rid of our pride, because if we can do that, all of the four from the beginning will be much, much easier. That's it. So if you have any questions, comments, no? No?
I think we do have something, right?
Yes.
Most recently, I was watching the Chosen, Netflix.
Mhm.
There is a new season, actually, very, very good.
I think I know where you're going.
The Chosen.
Yeah.
Okay. Why is so different? Because it's not about Jesus, actually. It's about the disciples,
Mhm.
the interaction among them. And there is one part that I have to confess, I read the Bible very often, but I don't remember anything about the conflict between Matthew and Simon. And the reason comes because Simon actually was a fisherman, and he owned that to Rome. And Matthew was the tax collector that puts Simon in trouble against Rome. So basically, in the story, the first first season, Simon was in big trouble, pretty much bankrupt, and owing a lot of tax to Rome. And Matthew was the person spying against Simon and putting Simon in front of the in front of the authorities, pretty much to destroy his life. And then comes Jesus, and then Jesus brings both together, etc. But they never connected during this entire period, right? And I never noticed that. But in some point in season 5, um, Jesus was making a speech about asking you to forgive. And uh, forget someone, right? Um, and then Matthew stopped crying because he asked Jesus to forgive what he did to Simon, but he never asked Simon to forgive him. And he started crying like a baby because he realized all the bad things that he did to Simon. The person that was beside him for probably months. Well, with all that, it's like, honestly, talking about myself, Leo never realized that there were almost two enemies among the disciples of Jesus, actually. And and this entire episode is about Matthew making this, realizing that this was happening, all the bad things that he did to Simon. And then Simon forgiving after very hard time to give all his heart to Matthew. So in the last point, you put patience, you put charity, and you put forgive. Forgive is not forget. Uh, but sometimes it's so difficult. But we do have these in the Bible, and I honestly never noticed that. So this got my attention the entire week, actually. How the person who destroy your life, it's not your boss who fire you. It's the person that puts the entire army against you. Was about you're about to lose your house, your family, go to court, be in prison. It's like for the rest of your life. The guy was beside you, and I didn't notice that this dynamic. And in the end, Simon just don't say anything. Just go to Matthew and give a hug. Super beautiful. I really recommend because this got my entire week thinking about forgive and forget.
I think that's a good example, and we can bring it to our lives, right? How many times it happens with us? We have our friends, and someone does something, and we are like, "Oh no, I'm not forgiving," right? Because our pride or anything else. So we have the example of the disciples, right?
Yeah.
And you brought the thing, and I thought we were going in another way because when I was preparing here, I watched the series as well, and there's a passage on the series that where Jesus and the disciples they are traveling, and they were stopped by some Romans, and they asked them to carry the things, right? And then they carry the things for 1,000 steps, and then Jesus say, "Hey, no, we are not there. We will carry it to the end." But I didn't add it to the lecture because I couldn't find any reference in the Bible and any reference on the gospel about that. But I think it was a good example. I was like, okay, I'm not bringing it. But now yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought was really nice that you brought is like the part that the acknowledgement, right? Because if he did not acknowledge the wrongdoing that he did, he'll never change. And I think that is the first step for us to start doing good is when we acknowledge that what we are doing is actually bad. Because sometimes you do, like as Patrick said at the beginning, with the best of your intentions, but you're still doing bad, right? Because otherwise we would not be here. We would be perfect spirits. So what would be the point of suffering on earth? So I think that knowledge is the first step. And then the forgiveness, that's like so hard because we still have our pride, our selfishness and everything all in us. But until you acknowledge, there is nothing you can do because you cannot change something that's not wrong.
Yep.
In your mind already.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I truly recommend this, not only this season, but also the show, because shows a lot of behind the scenes of what happened, the dynamic, and give a lot of examples of Jesus' teachings. So I truly recommend.
Any other comments? Questions?
We tend to read a lot the gospel, right? That's very good. Please read the gospel. The gospel according to the Spirit. Very good. Please read it. But gospel, the book, it's a collection of sentence passages about the Bible. So go there and read the Bible too, because this is gonna enhance your knowledge about those passages, right?
Yep, you're correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for participating. Thank you for those that joined us online. It was a great lecture. Lots to think about. Let's focus on the 4 points. That might sound simple. That's just 4, but if you get one right this incarnation, good for you. But anyway, have a lovely weekend, guys. And for those who are here, we're gonna have our passes.